Hey, this is Bo the Mechanic again. Got a new little video for you. I'm going to show you guys how to put in a thermostat in a 1995, let's say, all the way back. Straight 6, V8, any Ford V8s, any thermostat that's pretty easy to get to in the front of a car, front of the engine. And that's going to include all the old Jeeps, all the old Cherokees, Grand Cherokees, 302 Ford V8s, 350s from Chevy, and on, 305s, and on and on. So let's go out there and I'll show you. Hey Internet Land, I'm making another video for you guys. There's a bunch of them out there. This is just going to be my own little version. How to change a thermostat. This is really basic. A lot of people have seen, or needed to do this in the past, and a lot of times you can do it yourself and save yourself some money. Thermostats are really cheap. They only cost $7 or so. The gasket's cheap. It costs $1. If you have any car that's old, I mean an older car, let's say like 95 and older, say an old pickup truck, any older, older cars are a lot easier to work on, so you should be able to perform this task by yourself with just watching this video maybe. And if you feel like you can barely operate wrenches, then you should be able to do it yourself. The car that we're working on specifically right now, this is a 91 Ford F-150 4.9. It's a straight 6, the old straight 6 engine. Ford's made it for a long time. Really tough, cast iron everything. But what we're going to do is we're going to change the thermostat. On this car, I'd already done a huge job to it. It blew a head gasket. The guy let it overheat. And so I put a new head gasket in it, and this is, one of the last things that I'm trying to get knocked out, but I figured I might as well make a video and show you guys how to do it. Let's just talk about cooling for a minute. Obviously this car came in because it overheated and it blew a head gasket, and some reasons that cars blow head gaskets, okay? For instance, if it overheats, you might have lost water from somewhere. You could have a hose that's leaking, okay? If you got a coolant hose that's leaking, you're definitely going to have a void of water, and eventually the car's going to overheat. It's going to start to develop steam. Steam is your enemy. Steam doesn't help you in any way, and it's super dangerous, and it'll pop some of the gaskets inside the car. The head gasket's one of those gaskets that most commonly will explode. It doesn't really explode, but it'll just kind of punch a little hole in it. It'll hiss, and now you've lost a bunch of compression. Now your car might not run right. So, one reason is just definitely check your fluids all the time, at least once a month or so. You need to pop your hood and check the fluids, make sure that it's got coolant inside the car. Okay, another reason that your car can overheat is, let's say that the fan isn't moving. In this old truck and most old cars, they have what's called a fan and a fan clutch. It's a direct mechanical fan. It moves in a circle, and I'll show you guys one of those really quick. On this old Ford, this right here is a fan. It's a fan clutch, a piece of aluminum. And this is a mechanical device, and it actually sits inside the car and it spins, and it'll take your finger off. It's really, really, really heavy. So, this is a mechanical fan, and a lot of newer cars have electrical fans. They both do the same job. They basically cool down the radiator. This radiator, water boils at 212, and so basically you want to keep water from boiling. Steam is your enemy, like I told you. So water basically flows in your engine. It stays in the cylinder head until it gets to a certain temperature, whatever temperature your thermostat might be, and the thermostat opens up and lets that really hot water flow into the radiator, get cooled down by the air that's rushing past it, either by the fan in traffic or just driving on the freeway. There's so much air flowing through it that it's a heat exchange. This radiator cools down this water, and by the time it makes it to the bottom of the radiator, it's pretty cold. Flows into the engine again for its little cycle where it gets heated by the gas, by the exploding gases, the gasoline, heats it up, and it goes right back on its cycle. Most in a combustion engine, most of your waste, gasoline is a heat byproduct. There's tons of heat byproduct. You only get about 20 or 30% of energy transferred into actual physical motion. All the rest is dumped as heat, and that coolant is trying to cool the engine to try and make up for that lost heat exchange. A lot of stuff aside, basically, so you've got a radiator. You definitely want to keep fluid in your radiator. If your thermostat starts sticking, it can either stick open or it can stick closed, okay? If it's sticking open, then, basically your car just won't heat up. It'll take forever to heat up, and sometimes in the summer, like here in Tennessee, you might end up with an overheating situation. Sometimes not, though. So let's focus on a thermostat sticking closed. When a thermostat sticks closed, obviously it never opens up and it never lets the water exit the head. So basically you're going to end up with the top radiator hose that's bulging and really hot, like hot to the touch. And your bottom radiator hose, the cold side, is just still ice cold because you're not getting any flow through because that thermostat's not opening it up to let the system cycle. Okay, so if you've got a radiator and you say the bottom hose is cold, the top hose is hot after running the car, and the thermostat gauge is still pegged out, pretty hot, turn your car off, hop out, check all that stuff. you know, maybe you've got a thermostat that's actually sticking, you know, and they do go bad. They don't last forever. And then, you know, some of the new cars, they last a lot longer than the older cars, but an older car like this, you might only get, you know, 10 or 20,000 miles out of it, 50,000 miles. They're kind of cheaper quality. You know, you get it for $7, it's not going to last forever. Maybe 10,000, 20,000 miles. So anyway, what I've gone ahead and done is I've got an entire another gooseneck. This is a gooseneck. It's a water outlet. Okay, these are notorious for cracking. They're made out of thin pot metal like material. So I went ahead and got another one of these, and you can get these from AutoZone or O'Reilly's or Advanced. They're like $10, I think, is what I paid for this. So I went ahead and got a new one just because the other one was just about to crack, and I didn't even want to mess with it, okay? This thing comes with a new gasket. This is your thermostat gasket, okay? This is your thermostat in a nice new box from the great people at AutoZone, okay? I don't even know what this one is. This one's a 195 degree thermostat. It'll say it, it's written on there, right in the bottom of this cap. Okay, you know, so this is what's actually called a thermostat. This does all the job of regulating mechanically. It regulates the water temperature inside this engine. When it gets hot, it opens up and it lets all the water flush out, and when it gets cold, the spring pops it closed again and then waits for it to heat up. You know, and it needs to do that for a couple of reasons. Cars run way more efficiently at hotter temperatures. They're designed to run at, you know, 195 degrees, obviously, on this specific engine. Some are 212, some are, you know, well, 200, 205, 202. But they're all designed to run at a hotter temperature than at a colder temperature, okay? So if your car's not running at its optimal temperature, it's gonna be really inefficient as far as fuel. It's gonna use way more fuel than it should. You know, and so that's one thing that I have to look at all the time as a mechanic. I have to make sure that your car is actually getting up to temperature. If it's fuel injected and it thinks that it's ice cold all the time, it's dumping more and more and more fuel trying to heat the engine up. And you don't want that with gas prices at $4 a gallon. Okay, you know, long story short though, so we've got this thermostat. We're gonna go ahead and show you where we're installing it in now. There you go. I mean, I know she's not a pretty looking truck, but it's what the customer drives, and he owns a little landscape company, and that's what he wants to do. So, you know, we're gonna keep it running for him. So there you go, okay? This is the thermostat, and it's gonna go, a lot of people install these incorrectly, okay? This spring side is gonna go towards the engine, just like that. This part's gonna go out. If you install this backwards, it's not gonna work. So obviously this is incorrect. This is correct. Thumbs up, okay? Thumbs up for correct. This way. I'm gonna show you that. So when this thing is installed, it's gonna look just like this, and it's kind of a bear to get it all lined up and in there, especially while holding a camera. So I'm gonna see if I can try and do it. All right, we're almost ready here. Okay, one last thing before we put this thing together. What I like to use, okay, they sell RTV, which is a remote thermal vulcanizer, and I don't like to use that. It's nasty stuff, and I don't like to have it on my hands, and I don't think that it really helps. So what I've always used, and what a lot of old guys have told me and showed me back in the day when I first started as a mechanic, is to use this stuff right here. This is shellac, okay? This is an Indian head shellacking compound. A bunch of people make it. Napa makes it. I don't even know. Permatex makes it, and this is the one I usually get just because it's cheaper. Okay, but this is basically like a little bit of a glue. It's a glue that works on cardboard, and it helps tack things up, okay? So I'm gonna use it on this right here. I'm gonna cover this with this shellac. So if you're gonna have to do a thermostat job like this, or anything with a gasket and a water pump gasket, go ahead and get a can of this Indian head shellac. It's worth its weight in gold for sure. Take this stuff, you won't ever have leaks with it. Cover this side of your housing with it. Put your gasket on. Put your gasket on, okay? And then you might as well go ahead and coat this side too. And if you do a water pump, which is down here, go ahead and coat that whole thing also. The shellac, I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 12 years, and with the shellac, I probably only had 1 or 2 leaks ever happen with the shellac. And that's a combination of just doing it a lot, but it's also a combination of using the right stuff, and the shellac definitely helps, okay? So just remember that. Get you a can of this Indian head gasket stuff, or any type of shellacking gasket compound, and start coating your contact points. Coat both sides, sandwich that gasket in between, and you'll be surprised with how few leaks you have. And nothing's more dissatisfying, especially when you're first learning to do stuff like this, is putting it all together, it leaks, then you got to do it again, and you feel like you were, you know, just a not good mechanic. And anyone can do this work. It's not that hard, you know. It's just a matter of positive thinking and sticking with it. Okay, so let me see if I can show you guys how to get this thing knocked out really quick. Alright, here we are. I've got this gooseneck put in now. I already showed you guys how to put it in. Just hand tighten both the bolts for right now. This is a new gooseneck, a new water outlet. The old one was going to crack. You could tell it almost had a stress crack in it. So I went ahead and replaced it. This part is water input, hot water input to your heater, okay? And it didn't come with it, so I'm reusing it. It's not in the greatest shape, but I could find one if I really wanted to, but too much of a hassle. So, you know, I had just threaded it in there and tightened it up on the bench inside because I've got a vise. It's not perfectly aligned, so I'm just going to move it a little bit. Not all cars are going to have this. You know, some Chevys don't have them set up like this. There we go. I just moved that a little bit. I didn't want it to contact this hose. I've got to be able to slide this hose on it. Great, there we go. So now, both heater lines have been installed. Shove them on there as far as you can. Tighten up your hose clamps. I'm going to tighten these, okay? These are the two bolts that hold your thermostat on, and I'm just going to tighten them snug, plus a little bit. See, right now I'm barely putting any energy on it. Do the other side, barely any energy on it, a little bit here. Now I'm going to go, and this is snug, and now I'm going to go snug plus a quarter turn-ish. Okay, same thing up here. That's snug plus a little bit, a quarter of a turn, an eighth of a turn. You don't want to just cram on these bolts. They're not very thick diameter bolts. So they only need 25 foot-pounds of torque, maybe if you had a torque wrench. I don't really use them. I've done this so long that I just do it by feel. That's one of those things, you do it enough, you can do it by feel. This little weird metal wire you have, this is aftermarket. Most of you people aren't going to have this. This is a aftermarket coolant temperature probe for a mechanical gauge that would sit inside your car, and it tells you what the engine's temperature is, okay? And I'm guessing this thing's probably bad, you know, because this guy had blown the head gasket. But I'm going to go ahead and thread it back in here, and I'm going to have to check it once I get the car running. Once the car's running, if this thing isn't registering the actual temperature of this engine, I'll replace it, because something happened, and that's why he blew this head gasket. And I don't want it to happen again, because I don't have time to do it again. But anyway, that's where this would thread into. And a lot of your cars, you know, you're not going to have this. You're going to have a different plug with an electrical plug into it, and, you know, just depends on the car. But this is a basic how-to on how to change your thermostat on any older car, older V8, Chevy 350, Ford 302, 4.9, Jeep Cherokees, all the old straight sixes. Any car, let's say prior to 96, I'd go 96 and older, it's going to be pretty easy. It's going to be a thermostat on the front of the engine, kind of just like this. So I hope that helps you guys.